This story took place in Shengzhou, the capital of Henan province. After being unemployed for 4 months, I found a butcher position that was being hired at a vegetable market. Although this job was not a serious business, I had no choice with my savings. I walked into that butcher's shop and wanted to meet the butcher to interview for this position. As soon as I walked in, I could smell the strong smell of blood. The butcher shop owner was a healthy middle-aged man with a beard. I had always felt that all butchers had something that made me afraid of them. The boss was a very straightforward person. He told me about the salary and what I had to do and told me that this was also a hard job. If I was me before, I would never have chosen to work in such an environment. However, the current circumstances do not allow me to have more choices. The two of us then chatted a little more about the job's details after we finished the hiring process. I started working that very evening. Before that, I really couldn't imagine how this job would be. But when I started working, I found this job to be quite simple. My task was to cut the pork into small pieces. Then I would use the grinder to build the meat very finely. The fresh meat would be sold during the day. The remaining minced meat would be sold to the restaurant in the evening. So, this work could only be done at night. I never thought I would do such a boring and disgusting job. However, sometimes people had to bow to the reality of society. No matter how talented you were, as long as you couldn't pay the rent, you would still have to sleep on the street tomorrow. So even as the bloody smell of minced meat and nausea tormented me, I had to continue to suffer. The owner of the restaurant was Dai. He was a foreigner and lived in the back room of the butcher shop. Every night before he left, he always ordered 2 dishes and drinks from the small shop next door. I tried a lot in this job, but it seemed the owner was an alcoholic. He had little interest in my work. The thing that made me feel even more strange about the boss, every night when he was drunk, he would start cursing people, berating horribly, even a woman. After scolding all kinds of things, he fell asleep in shock. I had to drag him to the bed in the back room several times. I'd worked there for more than 10 days in a flash. One night the boss had to go out to meet people around a rather large restaurant. He did not forget to warn me to watch out for the store and pay attention to safety. I quickly replied that he should trust me completely. After 10 days of working, the boss gradually got close to me and became more comfortable with me. I also came to think differently about the boss. He was not a too bad person, except for his slightly aggressive temper and alcoholism. Since the boss wasn't home, I cut the meat a little bigger to save trouble. I felt like I already knew all of the capabilities of this high-powered meat grinder. But unexpectedly that day, because I did not remove all the bones in the meat, I caused the meat grinder to get stuck. Looking at the pile of pork waiting to be pureed, I began to think and suddenly remembered that there was also a meat slicer in the restaurant. I usually put it on the shelf in the corner of the store. I thought it would be reasonable backup equipment, so I took it out. This meat grinder was clean. I need to clean, wipe it, and then plug it in to grind the meat. But I didn't expect what was about to happen after. As soon as the cord was plugged into the electrical outlet, the light in the room blinked twice. At that time, I thought it was because the line of the meat slicer was not good. After a few blinks, the light bulb went back to normal, and I didn't care about it anymore. Afraid of getting stuck again, I checked the piece of meat just now, changed the knife and started grinding again. But at this time a strange thing happened. The meat grinder worked for a long time but did not produce meat. Instead, it spewed out a lot of black hair looking like human hair. I pulled those things out of the faucet when I took a closer look. It turned out to be a woman's long hair. Honestly, the long hair on a woman's head was normally pretty, but once the hair was cut and held in hand, it made people feel shivers. At that time, I was hit by a strong electrical current. My mind was dizzy for a moment and felt empty. At that time, my mind was like being in a movie. I saw a naked woman lying on a cutting board. Beside her, a strong man was standing with a knife. What followed was an extremely bloody scene. That man was cutting the woman's body into countless pieces with a knife. Then the woman's meat was pressed into a meat grinder and it became a fine puree. This scene made me nauseous. When all the body pieces were disposed of, only the head of the long-haired woman remained. But that woman's head couldn't fit into the meat grinder, and long hairs got tangled in the grinder's gears. Although it was a long story, the images of that story flashed through my mind very fast, and I woke up immediately. But when I looked down, I suddenly saw a human head on a meat grinder. I screamed in fear, and my legs could no longer stand. I sat down on the ground. I was shocked at the horrible scene before my eyes. Everything happened so fast that I didn't have time to figure it out. Suddenly, a large hand was put on my shoulder from behind. I was so scared that I screamed and turned my head suddenly to see who it was. It turned out that was the boss. He came back after finishing collecting the bill. Seeing me sitting on the ground, he asked me what I was doing, why I was sitting on the ground like that. I got up and told the boss that his backup meat grinder appeared to be leaking electricity and I appeared to have been electrocuted. I was trying to talk to my boss about what I just had seen before. I turned around and found everything was normal in the meat grinder. The scenes just now seemed to be just my hallucinations. The boss glanced at the meat grinder on the desk and was suddenly very angry. I didn't know why this trifle made him so angry. He fired me because I disobeyed. Strangely, he not only paid me my salary in full, but also gave me 500 won more. I didn't want to learn more about this after I had left the butcher shop, but I thought there must be some horrible secret there.